Address transportation, address education, address electric rates.
I was just going to say.
Okay, those things. We have our transportation system gets a D, right? And you're in an area that is very adversely impacted by that because you can't get in and out of here very easily. You know that. I know that. Even if you get down 8 or get up 8 at the end of the day, right? You run into smack dab into the Merritt Parkway or 95. These are roads that are ancient, right? In real terms. And how many of those entrances and exits have they designed for cars, modern cars? A couple they've redesigned. That's it. We have accidents, we have breakdowns, we have problems on those roads literally constantly. Okay? I got on the highway to get here. I was a little late. I got on the highway for what should be about a 35-minute drive. Because I got in after 6 o'clock. Should have been about 35 minutes, right? Or let's put it this way: at 6 in the morning, it would be 35 minutes. Right? It was stop and go, even at 6 o'clock, all the way through 27A, right? And then I was able to zip up here. But on other times, if I'd hit it earlier, I'd hit 8 and have a backup as well. Transportation is killing us. The route to jobs in Connecticut has very frequently been New York corporations move into southern Fairfield County, set up operations, and move into other parts of the state. In fact, if I could take it, I could take all of you. We could go over to those office buildings in Shelton, not too far from here, and we would go in and look at the listing of companies on those things. Everyone, not everyone, but a very large, because I've done it, a very large percentage of those people are companies that have operations in Stamford. You know what's happened? It's dried up. You know why it's dried up? Because they can't get here anymore. We got to create a transportation system that works. University of Princeton, excuse me, and Yale New Haven are about the same distance from Manhattan, or equidistance basically. And in New Jersey, they've grown jobs as opposed to Connecticut. We've lost more manufacturing jobs in Connecticut than any other New England or Mid-Atlantic state. New Jersey's hung on to more manufacturing jobs than any other Mid-Atlantic and compared to New England states. Okay, they've created research institutions. They've created jobs. They have a much more. They have a deficit, but they have a much more robust economy and more jobs, and we don't. So then you scratch the surface. So this is what New Jersey's done on transportation, just as one issue. They've reworked the entrances and exits on all of their highway systems, from that area through New York City. They created light rail systems where they didn't exist. They reinvented ferry service where it hadn't existed for 40 years. They enlarged their airport. They built a monorail system in and out of their airport. They replaced their rolling stock and their railroad, largely at federal dollars as opposed to how we're doing it with our own dollars in this state. You know what we did in Connecticut? We did exit 8 going south in Stamford. And so it's not a mystery why we're not growing our economy. We haven't made the kinds of investments you have to make. Electric rates, I already talked about it. When I was running the first time for governor, I went to a place that made very fine tissue for medical purposes, paper. I got to the end of the tour and I said, well, what's the problems here? And it says, you know, Mr. Mayor, I got to tell you something. First of all, our electric rates are twice what it costs our competitors in Tennessee. That's our main competitor in Tennessee. They were paying, at the time, I think 11 cents a kilowatt, and this guy was paying 21 cents on average a kilowatt. He says, and that wouldn't be so bad, except for the last 4 years, I've been trying to get permitted by the state to build a cogeneration plant, meaning he would generate his own electricity and his own heat on his property. Now, I got to call the guy and find out if he ever got permission, because now it's only 6 years, right? And the state couldn't get out of its way to allow him to do it. I wonder if he's still there, right? But we're not doing anything about it. We've got to confront that issue. And then education, quite frankly, we can't afford. We're going to have to, you know, all of us eventually want to retire. And certainly everybody who works for the state, we know, wants to retire sooner or later, right? But our population in the state's getting older. We're losing too large a share of our college graduates to other places. We lose more of our Connecticut college graduates than any other state loses in its population, with the exception of Alaska. And when you look at certain urban systems, we're graduating, some of those groups, 7, 8, 11% of the people are graduating really qualified to do a job. Who's going to move their company here if we're not going to give them the kind of workforce that they need? So those are the three biggest issues that have to be tackled by a governor. By the way, what's the governor done on any one of those issues? Right. Exactly.